Hello and welcome back to the Fred in the Shed channel. Now, back in the lockdown days, I, who have had no experience in home brewing at all, I bought one of these make your own beer kits from the range, and I made a batch of Irish Stout, or Guinness if you like, and to my taste it was perfectly drinkable, more like the original Guinness than the draft stuff that you get in the pub. I liked it so much that I've made about 4 or 5 batches of this beer, and I've got another 2 here lined up. But for this one, I thought I'd try something else. Make your own. They make a premium lager kit. Now, I'm not a great fan of fizzy, gassy lager, but I do like a cold beer in the summer. I'd like to say I've no idea how this is going to turn out. I did do a little bit of research on this, and people said that the beer kit is a little bit more difficult to get right than the Irish Stout. The Irish Stout I found exceptionally easy. It's really hard to cock that up. But as I'm just a guy in a shed, there's a good chance that I probably will cock this up. But you guys will be coming along for the ride. I've not even opened the packet. I don't know the instructions. I know I need sugar. And I've got my beer barrel there, and I've taken it outside and I've sterilised that. That's ready to go. Let's crack this open and see what we need to get started. Inside the box, well, surprisingly, it's exactly the same as what we get with the Guinness kit. We've got the liquid malt pouch. I know this is extremely sticky and condensed, so we will need to put that in a bucket. We've got some hops for premium lager, and then we've got a sachet of high quality brewer's yeast. So let's get started. Let's get some hot water. We add 1 kilogram of sugar, get it mixed up in the barrel, and we can start this off. 3 litres of boiling water from the kettle, and then we can add 1 kilogram of sugar. Oh, there you go, 1 kilogram going in. All I need to do now is stir that up to make sure that it dissolves. Dissolves pretty quickly, doesn't it, in the boiling water. And there you go. Has a consistency of treacle, I suppose. Anyway, let me just do this off camera, you get the idea, and then you're going to have to stir this for about 3 or 4 minutes to make sure that it's properly dissolved. I've been doing that for about 4 minutes or so. That should be fully dissolved. So the next stage is to add 23 litres of cold tap water. Now, when I did this originally, I measured it, but I now know that it comes up to about there on the barrel. So let's get that done, and then we can add the brewer's yeast. And that's our 23 litres of cold water in, giving us a total of 26 litres. And, well, it looks, yeah, let's just say that you would need to drink a lot of water. It looks a bit odd, but that is it now. So what we need to do is add the yeast. We just sprinkle the brewer's yeast on top. There's no need, we don't need to stir it in, it will do its own stuff. I mean, yeast is a fantastic microorganism, isn't it? So what's going to happen now is this brewer's yeast, it's going to very quietly munch away on all of the sugar in the solution, and it will excrete, well, piss, alcohol for every gram of sugar that it consumes, and it will belch out carbon dioxide. Once it's eaten most of the sugar, the fermentation process will stop. Depending on temperature, that's why I've got it by a radiator, it takes about 10 days for that to stop. Let me put the lid on and show you what I use to keep an eye on the fermentation process. When you put the lid on your barrel, you don't want to leave this airtight because that carbon dioxide has got to come out. I've got a little hole in mine. I could leave that open, but I do like to use a little air trap, a little water bubbler, if you like. Stick that in there, and then what will happen is that traps the air inside, and then it lets out the carbon dioxide, and that will start. Right, so here we go. It's about 28 hours after I put the yeast in the barrel there, and we're bubbling away. Probably won't do it now on camera. Come on. Come on. There you go. So the carbon dioxide is building up, and that's fermenting away there. It's been 10 days now, and the fermentation has slowed right down. I'm still getting a few air bubbles, and now it's time to take off the lid and just to have a taste test to make sure that the beer does not taste sweet. If it does taste sweet, then we just have to leave it for a few more days, and then we can add the hops. So here we go. It's not the most appetising looking thing, is it? So it's obviously very cloudy at this stage. Let's have a little taste. It tastes like beer. Number one. Might be very, very slightly sweet. I might just leave that for another couple of days. It won't do it any harm. But as there is a couple of little bubbles coming up, I think I might just leave it for a couple of days before we add the hops. Day 12 of the fermentation process. There's still a few bubbles coming out, but it's slowed right down. In the summer, when it's warm, you can get away with adding the hops after 7 days with one of these kits, but this is January in the UK, and it gets well below freezing overnight, and the fermentation has been really slow. So this is 12 days. I'm now ready to add the hops. We just literally sprinkle the hop pellets on top in the beer, and they'll soak up the beer, and they'll sink to the bottom, and then the beer will start to clear once the fermentation process has stopped. So I'm going to leave that for a few more days. Then I'll taste it again to make sure that I like the taste, and it has got that slight bitter undertone, and then it will be time to start to bottle. It's been about another 5 days. All the fermentation process has now stopped. I've tasted the beer. There is no sweetness in the beer whatsoever. I always think it's best to leave it a few extra days than they recommend. Right, we're now get up to the bottling process, so let me show you how I do that. In a second, we're going to add a flat teaspoon of sugar to each of these bottles. Before you get started, it's very important that you sterilise everything. Now, make your own. Do sell these little packets of sterilising powder. It's not expensive, but you can get it anywhere on Amazon. You just dilute it down. As far as bottles go, I'm just using these Buxton sparkling spring bottles. It's what I've got available. The pack normally says a 600 millilitre bottle. That's a ½ litre bottle. I have tried those. What I've found in the past is that you get a better head on the beer if you use a litre and you allow a little bit of breathing room at the top. So I'm going to use 1 litre bottles. I should get about 21 or 22 litres of beer. These bottles have now been sterilised. I'm just going to rinse these out with hot water. When you do your sterilisation, don't forget to do the caps. It's very important. Everything needs to be absolutely sterilised. Right, it's now time to add the sugar. You can be precise if you want to. The correct measurement is a flat teaspoon per 600 millilitres of beer. You can use proper things if you want. Generally, because I'm using a 1 litre bottle, I use a large size teaspoon. I don't do it exactly, and it seems to work. Now, adding this sugar will kick off what I call a second fermentation. It will mean that when you open a bottle after it's been standing for about a week to 10 days, there will be some carbon dioxide in the beer, and when you pour the beer, it should hopefully give you a nice rich head. Downside, of course, is the sugar stays in the bottle, so that means you've got some sediment at the bottom of the bottle there. So when you do pour the beer, you have to be careful you don't disturb that and put it into your glass. So let's go on with the sugar. Once again, I'm using basic silver spoon granulated sugar because it's the cheapest. I think there are different sugars on the market. I'm using a funnel because it can get quite messy getting it into the bottle. I have tried other methods. Yeah, and that's about it. So I've just got another 21 to do, and then we're going to the other room, we'll fill it up. So much easier with the tap. Now when you fill the bottle, you need to leave an air gap. So it helps with these bottles because they've got this plastic promotional printing on it. But I generally leave probably about 1.5 inches from the top. There we go. That should do it. Now when you seal the bottle, what I found with these bottles is when at the moment they're very, very squeezy. And I'm going to leave this. It's still a little bit cloudy. You can see that it needs to clear, needs to settle. I shall leave this in a dark, cool place for about 7 to 10 days. And then what I'll do is I'll be squeezing the top of the bottle there. And when this is firm, then I know that the second stage fermentation has occurred. And that's it. That's the total yield. Just got the 3 little test bottles there, 22 litres, hopefully of good tasting beer. And what's left in the bottom of the barrel, that's all of the sediment, all of the rubbish. So that's it. Now I've got to leave it. Now the instructions say leave it between 7 and 10 days in a relatively dark, dry, cool place. My experience tells me with these kits it might take a little bit longer than that. These have been sitting here for 20 days now. I've been periodically just giving them a little squeeze, and the bottles do feel like they're under a little bit of pressure. Hopefully when we crack one in a short while we will get a little bit of fizz. Now I'm not expecting this beer to be very gassy, very carbonated like you would get at a Pilsner or a lager. Okay, so here we are. This is the moment of truth, all of those weeks of work. Now when I open this in a second, I want to hear a hiss to show there's been a little bit of carbonation. And then we're going to pour it. Hopefully we will get ahead. Then I shall test it, and I will be completely honest. If it tastes like crap, I'll tell you. But I'll give my honest opinion. Right, here we go. Listen carefully. Yep, there was a hiss. I hope that came out on camera. Right, the all-important pour. It looks good. Well, how about that? Look at that. It's got a decent head on it. It also looks very clear. And look, some fizzy carbonation. Let me just zoom in a little bit. There you go. Well, it's got the look, hasn't it? It's certainly got the look of a beer. Now, I'm not expecting a lager taste as such. But here we go then. Let's. I'll give it an honest opinion. Here we go. I tell you what, that's not bad. Let me have another slurp. That's quite lively. It's not gassy like lager, but it's actually got quite a bit of life in it. Do you know what? I'll be perfectly honest. I'm being totally honest now. If I was served that in a pub, I wouldn't complain. It's got a slightly more bitter taste than you would get, say, with a Pilsner or a lager. It's not quite Newcastle Brown Ale. It's not quite Nookie Brown, but it's along that sort of line. Maybe a Pale Ale, something like that. It's nice though. I tell you what, I'm impressed with that. Maybe I'm easily pleased, but that's quite a nice pint. I definitely wouldn't turn that down in a pub. So there we go. I think we'll bring the video to a close. Yeah, I'm quite impressed. I'll be doing that kit again. I think as long as you take your time and you sterilise everything, you don't rush it. I've always decided that, you know, if you leave it an extra few days, say 20 days for it to mature, and that's quite a nice lively pint. Okay, gonna have that with my dinner tonight. So there you go. Thanks as always for watching the video. If you do homebrew brewery stuff yourself, you want to leave me a tip in the comments, I'd appreciate it because I'm still learning. But I think that'll be it for now. So there's the fun from Freddy in the Shed. Thanks for your view time. Just take a minute, give me a thumbs up down below. Helps promote the video and helps promote the channel. But as for now, as always, please, please, please stay safe. Catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.